Today's daf is daf Ayin Daled. We are going to begin by the Mishnah. Harei ze gitach. Zog the Mishnah. Harei ze gitach. If a husband says to his wife, "This is your get, amanas shetitne li masayim zus," on condition that you will give me 200 dinars. So the halacha is harei ze mugereshes. She is divorced. However, v'titain, she has to give him the $200, 200 dinars, in order to fulfill the condition of the get. Now, if the husband says to his wife, "This is your get, I'm giving you this get on condition that you're going to give me money from now until 30 days. So if she gives him the money within 30 days, she is divorced. If not, she's not divorced. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, there was a story in the city of Tzaitan. In regards to the person who tells his wife, so the husband says to his wife, "Here's your get on condition you give me back my coat." What happened was that she lost the coat, so she couldn't give him the actual coat. The Chacham said, let her give the value of the coat, and by doing so, she will be divorced. Now, in the beginning of the Mishnah, it says that if he makes a condition with his wife, here's the get on condition that you give me 200 dinars. So the halacha is harei ze megureshes v'titin. So asks the Gemara, "My v'titin, what does it mean and must give?" Rav Huna Amar v'hititin. Rav Huna says that she's divorced immediately once the get has been given over to her, and she must give him the money in order to fulfill the condition. In other words, the get takes effect l'mafreya from the time when it was given after she gives the money. Kozman, she doesn't give the money, so the get is not chal. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Rabbi Huna says that she's divorced. Immediately once the get has been given over to her, but she has to give the money in order to fulfill the condition, and the get takes effect retroactively from the time when it was given after she gives the money. Now, Rabbi Yehuda argues and says, no, she's divorced only when she gives him the money. Kozman, the money was not given. The chalais, the Gittin are not there. Asks the Gemara, what's going to be the difference between Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehuda? And for the Gemara, the difference will be in a case when the get was torn or was lost after she received it, but before she gave the money. So Rav Huna says v'hititin. Rav Huna says she must give him, but the get takes effect l'mafreya. So if it was torn or lost, then dalach has any tzricha hemena get sheni. She does not require a second divorce from him because the get was already chal. So she has to give the money. Rabbi Yehuda says lekeshetitin. When Rabbi Yehuda says when she gives him the money, so therefore, if let's say the document was either torn or lost, she's going to need a get sheni from him, because his opinion is that the get is not chal until she has given the money. Since she did not give the money yet, so then she never really got a get. So now that the get is either kara or abad, so it doesn't take effect. Gemara says, we learned a exact halach with regards to kiddushin that Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehuda also disagree. The Tanam we learned, this is a Mishnah kiddushin which says, if one says to a woman, if one says to a woman, you are going to be mekudeshes to me on condition that I will give you 200 dinars, so the halach is harei he mekudeshes. So now they're engaged. The Gittin, and he has to give the money. V'itmar, and we learned over there, my Gittin. What does it mean when the Mishnah says Gittin? What does that mean? So Rav Huna Amar v'hu Gittin. Rav Huna says he must give, meaning that she is mekudeshes, provided that the husband gives what he promised. And Rabbi Yehuda Amar le keshiyitin, that the mekudeshes only when he gives. The Gemara asks, my benai, what's the difference between the two Amiroim? This will be in a case where she went ahead and she accepted kiddushin from another man before the first and gave her the money that he promised. He says he must give to no ba'almu. So it's just a condition that he accepted upon himself. If he fulfills this condition and moves on, and the woman is mukudeshes to him. Therefore, the kedushin of the second man has no validity. Rabbi Yehuda says when he gives, which means which means that when he gives her the money, it will be a valid kedushin. But now it's not considered a valid kedushin, and therefore the kedushin from the second person takes effect. Now the Gemara says, why do I need to have both cases side by kedushin and side by gittin? The same machlekes. So the Gemara says, it's necessary to mention the machlekes in both cases. Why? If it would only tell me the machlekes with regards to kedushin, so I would think, I would think only over there, Rav Huna says, and he should give. Why we should allocate Rav Akasa? Because he comes close to her in marriage. So he does this willingly, and therefore we assume that his kavanah was for the kedushin to take effect. However, in regards to divorce, which what is kedushin? What is Gittin doing? It comes to distance her, so we assume that he does so unwillingly, so that he makes the divorce dependent on condition in order to delay the matter. So you would think that Rav Huna agrees to Rabbi Yehuda that the divorce does not take effect until the condition has been fulfilled. So that's why he has to tell us no, that in both cases is l'shitosoi that it's v'hu. Now, if it would only teach me in the case of Gershin, I would think that Dafka in Gershin, Rav Huna holds v'hu titin mishum delay kosiv lemitfei, because he is not embarrassed to demand the money from her afterwards to fulfill the condition of the get, and his kavanah was to divorce her immediately. I will gabe kedushin, but in regards to kedushin, the ksifa lemitfei, where she is embarrassed to demand money that he promised would come from him. So, in other words, since she's embarrassed to demand the money, she may not agree to be mukudeshes to him until she actually receives the money. Therefore, you would say that Rav Huna agrees to Rav Yehuda that the kedushin is valid only once he gives the money. Now, and furthermore, if it was taught only their opinions in regards to kedushin, so I would think over there Rabbi Yehuda holds that the kedushin is valid only when he gives her the money, because she's embarrassed to demand from him. Gershin, in regards to Gershin, the she's not divorced, she's not embarrassed to ask. You would think that Rabbi Yehuda agrees to Rav Huna. Now, Gershin, and if it was only taught in regards to Gershin, I would think Dafka Rabbi Yehuda holds over there. Dafka over there, he agrees the Kishiyitin because they are distancing. He's distancing her from him. But in regards to Kedushin, where he draws her close, so you would think that Rabbi Yehuda agrees to Rabbi Huna. Therefore, it's necessary to state the machlekes in both cases. So now, the Gemara asks a question based on what was taught in the Braisa. If a person says to a woman, "This is your get unconditional, you will give me 200 dinar." Even when the get was divorced, torn, or lost, she's divorced, and she may not marry another man until she gives her first husband the money. And furthermore, it was taught in the same Braisa. If a person says to his wife, "This is your get on condition that you will give 200 dinars to me," and the husband dies, but not only dies childless. So Nasna, if she had already given him the money, then in his kukuliyabam, she is not bound to yibum because she was already divorced from her husband through the get that he gave her. Lay Nasna, but if she had not given the money, then Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, he says that she should give the money to either her late husband's father, or to his brother, or to one of the relatives who yarshin for him. And by doing so, she fulfills the condition and does not have to do yibum. The Gemara says, the first time Rav Shimon ben Gamliel disagree only with regards to the meaning of the condition, which means that the Chachamim, the first time, holds that when the husband said, Almanas, that she will give to me, he meant to me specifically and not to my Yarshim. And she cannot fulfill the condition by giving the money to the Yarshim. And if Shimon Gamliel holds that when the husband said that she will give the money to me, he meant to Afilu Yarsha, even to my Yarshim. Now, everyone agrees that this is a valid condition. Yet its fulfillment does not change the date of the get. it does not take effect yet. So now to Yehuda, this is a Tiyufta on the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that the get of divorce takes effect only when she gives. So the more answers, Amalek Rabbi Yehuda will tell you Hamani. And according to whose opinion is this Brisa? Rebbe, this is the opinion of Rebbe Danasi. The Rebbe Yehuno, Rebbe Kol Imar Almanas Bishkoimer Mashav Dami. Whoever says Almanas, it's like he said a now. So the agreement will take effect on Mafreya from now, even though the condition is fulfilled only later. The Rabbanan and the Chachamim disagree with him. Well, no, the Amrik Rabbanan and I hold like the Rabbanan. Reb Zayda says, well, we were in bubble. He said, with regard to the following statement, this that Rebbe said, that we said that anybody who says Amanas is Chachamim disagree with him. When I went there to Yisrael, I found Rebbe Asi, who was sitting and stating in the name of Rabbi Yechon. Everyone agrees that when you say Amanas, it's like he says Ma'ashav Dami, but they disagree only from today until after my death. Now, Tanya was taught in a brisa that the husband says to his wife, "This is your get from today and after my death." Then get, it's a get, but it's not a get. These are the words of the Chachamim. Because a get, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi holds a case like this is considered a good get without any suffix. So this teaches that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and the Chacham disagree only in the case, but everyone agrees that when he said the language Almanas, if he stipulated Me'achsha from now. So the Gemara asks, Rabbi Yehuda Almanas Pligi. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who said that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and the Chacham disagree with regards to the language of Almanas, so rather than disagreeing with regard to the case of the husband that said from today and after my death, let them disagree with regards to the case where the husband says on the condition. So when answers the Brisa uses this case to inform you the koyach of the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who is certain that this get is valid. So the Gemara asks, well, if the go Almanas, why don't you argue on the case of Almanas, and will teach us the power of the Chachamim, who do not hold that the phrase Almanas is considered like the phrase from now. So the Gemara says, famous line, it's preferable to emphasize the power of kula, of leniency, and therefore it's preferable to teach the degree to which Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is makel. The Mishnah taught, the husband says to his wife, the husband says, here is your get on condition, you will give me money from now until the conclusion of 30 days. If she gives the money within 30 days to him, she's divorced. And if not, she's not divorced. So for the Gemara Pshita, it's obvious, since everything depends on whether the condition was filled. So if you fulfill the condition, then very good. So the Gemara says, you would say, no, the halacha that the divorce does not take effect unless she gives the money by the time it needs to be said. Why? Because you would say that we have a concern that the husband, a concern of the husband that his wife will give him the money with a specific time frame is not a real concern. And he comes to just to make her crazy. Although he wishes to receive the money as soon as possible, in truth, he does not care for your soul. He doesn't care to receive the money. And therefore, he teaches us that the statement is valid condition, and if she does not fulfill it, then it's not a valid divorce. Now, then the last part of the Mishnah brought a story of the city of Tzidon involving a person who said to his wife, this is your get on condition that you will give me my coat, and she lost the coat. So the Chacham said she should give him the value of the coat, and by doing so, she fulfills the condition and is divorced. So the Gemara says, Ma Tana Diktani Maisa. What did Rabbi Shimon Gamliel teach before to such that he now teaches them story? In other words, the story does not seem to be referring to what was stated before in the Mishnah. It has no connection. So the Gemara says, really, the Mishnah is incomplete, and this is what it's teaching us. It's the lisa of that if the husband said to his wife, this is your get on condition that you will give me my coat, and she lost his coat, and since he specifically stated it to her, give me my coat, and she cannot give him and she can only give him the value instead. Since she lost the coat, the get is not valid. Now, Shimon Gamliel says, no, in such a case, she can give him the value. You should know there's a story inside then that there was a story of a person who gave his wife a divorce, and she said, on condition that you give me back my coat, and she lost the coat. One of the Chacham say, Titan lays them out, give the value. Boy, you If a person says to his wife, this is your get on condition that you will give me 200 dinars, and afterwards he returned and said to her, it's waived for you, it's a machol, so what's the din? So the Gemara says, this question is Sai, the Chachamim Sai, Rishim Gamliel. This question can be on the Rabbanon, the Arkan, like Rabbanon Hassam, that only over there, the Chachamim say over there, that she's not divorced, and if the condition is not fulfilled, then she gives him the coat, is because he was not Meichel's claim to her. But over here he says clearly that it's waived for you, it's machel, so therefore it should be a divorce. Or maybe I feel like one can say that even if Shimon Gamliel states that one can be divorced even if he does not receive the coat, only there as she appeased him by giving him the money. In other words, the condition is considered to be fulfilled due to the fact that he received the value of the coat. But in the case where he waives the condition entirely, no, because he does not receive anything from her. Amar Lei, Reichland said to him, in such a case, she's not divorced because the condition has not been fulfilled. Esvei asked a Shiloh his opinion from ambition in the Darim. If a person says to another, koinim, benefiting from me is koinim for you, meaning it's also for you to derive benefit from me. If you do not give my son 1 quart of wheat and 2 barrels of wine as a wedding gift. Now, Rabbi Meir says it's also to this other person to benefit from the other person took the shavua until he gives the son the gift. Chacham say even this individual took this vow can dissolve his vow without the consent of a chacham. And he does so by saying, I hereby consider as though I have received the gift from you. So based on this Mishnah, it would seem that if the husband forgives his wife the money that she owes him, it would be considered as if he received it, and the get should be invalid. So the Gemara says, how can these cases be compared? There, in the case of the divorce, he just wants to make her crazy, and until she pays him, he doesn't let go. If he forgives the condition, his initial kavanah has not been fulfilled. Here, in the case of the vow, the reason that the father took the vow is for the sake of profit. He wants his son to receive a valuable gift. And the one who took the vow decides that it wasn't necessary, therefore he can be meichelet. Where it says a story, there was a certain man who said to a sharecropper, everyone waters the field 3 times during the season, and they receive his payment 1 quarter of the crops of the field. And so he says, so what happened was like this. A man said to the sharecropper, everyone waters the field 3 times during the season, and they receive as payment 1 quarter of the crops of the field. Will you water 4 times and consume as your payment 1/3 of the produce? So what happened? Ultimately, rain came when the sharecropper who would have needed to water a 4th time, and so he did not need to water a field a 4th time. So the question was presented to the Chachamim, is the sharecropper still entitled to receive 1/3 of the produce since he was prepared to water the field, although ultimately it was not necessary to do so? Rabbi S says, but he did not water the field a 4th time, so the Tanai was not fulfilled. So he deserves the same as the other sharecroppers and receives only 1 quarter of the produce. Rabbi says it was not necessary to water the field the 4th time because the rain fell to the benefit of the artist, and therefore he should receive 1/3 of the produce. So the Gemara asks, shall we say that Rabbi Yosef holds the Rabbanan and the Rabbi holds the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? So the Gemara says, do you really understand it this way? We pass on the Allah is always the Rabba, and this it's not according to the opinion of Shimon Gamliel. If so, this presents a stira between one Allah and another. Where it says, really, the both opinions, the machlekes is actually according to the opinion of the Chachamim. Rabbi Yosef Rabbanan, and Rabbi Yosef clearly paskins it according to the Chachamim. Rabbi could have said to you, and now I was saying this halach even according to the opinion of the Chachamim. That even in this case, even the Chachamim will say, the Chachamim were saying there that she's not divorced if she does not return the coat itself, only when the husband tends to make her crazy. And if she does not need to give the coat itself, she will not be saved, as it's not difficult for her to give him the value. But here, in the case of the watering the field, the reason the owner is making the condition is only for the sake of increasing the profit. It was not necessary to actually water the field. Now, Tanan also, we learned over there, in regards to redemption of a house in a walled city, we learned in the Mishnah that if a house was sold and not redeemed by its owner within 12 months, it remains permanently in the possession of the purchaser. So the Gemara says, in the beginning, at first, the purchaser would hide for all the final day of the 12th month so that the house would be confirmed as his. Because the purchaser was hiding, the seller would be unable to redeem the house from him. Hillel Hazakan instituted whereby the seller may deposit his redemption money in the temple treasurer chamber, and then he may break the door of his house and enter to take possession. When the purchaser wishes, he should come and take his money from the temple treasurer. Rava says, from the takana we learn of Hillel, we learn that if one says to his wife, if a person says that this is the get that you will give to me 200 dinars, and she gave him the money with his consent, so the halacha is she's divorced. Al korchoi, if she gave him against his will, then in Migurashis she's not Migurashis. Now, how does Rava prove this? From the fact that it was necessary for Hillel to make a takana a unique case. In this case of the houses of the walled city, that he's giving against his will of the receiver, the Havile Nesina is considered like a Nesina. So now, Michlal, the Baal Nesina, Baal Korchalei Nesina, this proves that generally giving against the recipient's will is not considered a valid giving, as if it were that Hillel would not have needed to make a takana. And perhaps when it was necessary for Hillel to institute a takana allowing the seller to repay the money against the will of the purchaser, was specifically in the case of Shlei B'fanav, Dafka, where he gives the money not in the presence of the purchaser. Aval B'fanav, when he repays it in his presence, so it's Mashma would imply whether the recipient was willing or whether it was against his will, it's considered a valid giving. Accordingly, one cannot apply Hillel's takana to the case of a Tanai with Gittin. Now, other people say that there was a different girsa. Amar Rava says from the takana of Hillel, we can learn that if a person says this is the get on condition that you will give 200 dinars to my wife, and she gave it, whether it was with his consent or whether it was against his will, it's considered a valid giving. And the case where it was necessary for Hillel to make a takana when the giving of the money was not in his presence, but in this presence, whether it was with his consent, whether it was against his consent, is considered a good giving. And maybe, perhaps, even the case when she gives him the money in his presence, if she gives it with his consent, it's considered good. But if she gives it against his will, it's not considered a good get. Hillel and Hillel specifically instituted what was necessary, because in the case of the house in a walled city, the purchaser would hide, and thereby the takana was necessary there.